Well, with that, we're going to then go to public comment. I'll call your name. We have quite a number of speakers today, so you have 3 minutes, so just keep an eye on it. And I appreciate everybody honoring the diversity of opinion that will be in this room today. So first up is Patrick McGibney, followed by Clare Mimicus.
I am Patrick McGibney, the Chief Environmental Officer for BioDiversity First, a nonprofit organization whose mission it is to protect those who have no voice and to work and to preserve and protect the wild lands and species upon which we all depend for our physical and spiritual survival. I'm here today to comment on the draft cannabis ordinance. There are 10 questions listed that are in need of direction. These are our responses. Land use designation. Cannabis is considered a specialty crop. Locations allowed should be dependent on sustainable water resources. Cap on cultivation permits. Decrease cap of permits to 50, including nurseries. Increase cap as warranted. You can always take or always give much easier than you can take away. Selection of permit holders by lottery to give everybody a chance. Distribution of cannabis permits by district. Don't burden or benefit any one district. Selection of distribution and cultivation permits. Set aside allocated number of permits for a coastal zone. Mixed light cultivation. Create separate definitions for indoor, outdoor, and mixed light cultivation. Storefront dispensaries allow both medical and non-medical in both inland and coastal zones. Delivery services. Definitely allow delivery services. Caregiver registration. Require caregivers to present patient declaration forms and allow up to 5 patients per caregiver. Limitations on permits of licensees per site. Limit to 1 land use permit per site and increase as warranted. In closing, we can see what the lack of planning and regulations for a high water dependent crop such as grapes can do to a water basin such as the Paso Robles Basin. We surely don't want to make the same mistake elsewhere, such as on the Carrizo Plain Water Basin. Due to the limited water supply of the Carrizo Water Basin as outlined in the San Luis Obispo Master Water Report 2012, and to the extreme sensitivity of the habitat in the Carrizo Plain planning area and the number of threatened, endangered, and protected species, and the high water needs for cannabis cultivation, BioDiversity First recommends that cannabis cultivation be banned in all sensitive habitats and in the whole Carrizo planning area, including California Valley, of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Clare Mimicus will be followed by James Green.
Good afternoon, Honorable Supervisors. Clare Mimicus, District 1. Pot growers. What do they know about land use ordinances except they want them to be fair and equitable for everyone? That 100 permits isn't enough, 300-foot setback is too much, that there should be dispensaries and mobile deliveries. But what do they know of hearing officers and monitoring programs new to this draft, of the now expanded enforcement section, of permits being revoked for transferring a business? They know about odor and that outdoor sun-grown cannabis will smell even if the ordinance says that the smell should not be detected off-site. Is the new draft overreaching in areas? Possibly, but they don't know that. It's not their area of expertise. They know that asking a grower for his plans and procedures for cultivation is like asking for the Coca-Cola recipe. Not happening. How many harvests per year? Well, as many as possible, right? They did notice that there's no mention of previous registration under the urgency ordinance in the criteria list, something that's unique to our county. To make the application process a beauty contest, where in other counties like neighboring Monterey, the cost of a consultant to help with a submission package was $50,000, a package with 700 pages and no guarantee of a positive outcome. It isn't fair or equitable for our local, humble constituency. This is a critical time in our county where rules are being set for a previously unregulated industry. Having the locals weigh in on things they know about is fair, but to expect them to pick up on other things in the ordinance that they don't know about and that may affect them negatively is not fair. Perhaps it would be prudent to ask the cannabis consultant under contract with the county to peruse this draft submitted by staff, give an objective evaluation, and offer advisement to the board so that you, in turn, may present the Planning Commission with the best document possible for a fair and equitable ordinance for your local cannabis industry. Thank you for your tireless work.
Thank you. Thank you, Marie Roth. Will be followed by our last speaker, Jamie Kirk.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is what happens when I go last, so I'm going to try and get all these comments out. Greetings, Chairman Pichong, fellow supervisors, and staff. My name is Marie Roth. I'm with the SLO County Cannabis Business Association. It is no secret that we are embarking on a huge undertaking, and your tireless efforts do not go unnoticed, so thank you. SLO CCBA is working with professional business service providers who recognize a need for sophistication in the current industry and are anxious to help those small businesses become competitive on a professional market level. Let's not limit the potential for responsible business development. More limits means less competition, and we must support the state's effort in avoiding monopolies to form in this industry. I was just on a call with California Growers Association on Monday being updated on the trailer bill, the budget trailer bill. And the members of CGA and stakeholders have spent the better part of 2 years working diligently with state legislators and the governor's office to implement safeguards that protect the smaller cannabis cultivator and producer, safeguards that will allow them to be competitive in the marketplace far into the future. SLO County leaders ought to be working just as hard to support its local original stakeholders. That's what California Cannabis is all about. Indigenous cultivators creating an organically created California product. There is room for everyone in this marketplace, and I ask that you consider how SLO County would allow for an open but carefully regulated cannabis market. And there is a way to do this while maintaining the integrity SLO County has worked so hard to achieve. I am not big on limitations, so I would encourage no limitations so that we not manipulate the quest for equilibrium in this marketplace. I'm also looking forward to developing appellation standards for our region. This goes beyond just geographical indicators for this particular industry, and it also encompasses things such as growing standards, practices, varietals, culture, handcrafted, indoor and outdoor. All of these things can be considered into that appellation consideration, and the benefits obviously to the appellations are that it creates brand protections for products developed here in SLO County and on the Central Coast. And we know this also from the wine industry. So that's actually all I have to say, and I got it done right under the 3 minutes. Thank you all very much. You guys are doing a great job.
Jamie Kirk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Jamie Kirk. And I have submitted comments in writing to you that get into the minutia of the different areas staff was looking for some input on, as well as the line by line on I think this is the third version of the ordinance. So I'll limit my comments to some just bigger picture policy comments. Most of what I'm going to say has been said before. We should look at cannabis as agriculture. This is agriculture, but it is going to be subject to some additional special use standards. And in speaking to something Mr. McNulty brought up, if we're able to qualify for a CEQA exemption, I think that is a great idea, because if we don't and we try to craft a CEQA just saying that we're exempt from CEQA based on the specifics of this ordinance, I have a feeling we're going to be in litigation for a while, and this ordinance is going to be held up. And I don't think people in the industry want to hold up this ordinance. We want to get it in place so we can get commercial cannabis operating legally in our county. So one idea I thought of as I was sitting there is maybe look at setting permit thresholds similar to what you have. I think it's on page 20 for indoor cultivation. And instead of starting with the tier 1 minor use permit, start with a site plan if that would qualify as a discretionary permit. It's quasi-discretionary, but it's approved as long as you meet the standards. So that would be a great place to start for our small growers. It's a more straightforward permit process. So I'd like you to consider that. There should be no arbitrary cap on permits. I think that's been a common theme today. We should remove the standard prohibiting new cultivations on sites that have not been previously disturbed. That's if that standard stays in. I think that standard was in there to try to meet the CEQA exemption, but if that standard stays in there, there's no growth of the industry. We should allow volatile manufacturing subject to stringent standards and a higher permit level. Maybe it's a CUP if you want to do the volatile, but let's allow it. Let's not restrict it. We should allow multiple licenses on a site subject to a master use permit. So if somebody wants to do 2 acres with various licenses, they can do it if we have a master use permit that covers the site, and maybe that's a CUP for the larger operations. Align the local regulations with state regulations. Here's something you're going to be surprised to hear me say. Consider a land use permit renewal requirement. So every 5 years, they have to come in and renew their permit. So that art...
Yes, I'm surprised.
Yes, you are. So art isn't out chasing them, but it encourages compliance. Because if people know they have to come back, they're going to make sure that they stay in compliance, and it will reduce the burden on code enforcement. We should allow dispensaries in industrial zones. And we should include modifications to standards, allow a modification to standards subject to specific findings. We heard someone talk about the setbacks. We should have specific findings that allow modifications. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one more speaker slip, but Claire, there's no name on this other than Slow Normal.
It's supposed to be Jason, but he's stuck in traffic.
Does he have any written things you can submit?
Yes.
Why don't you submit it in writing? Because you've already spoken once. So if you could submit his things in writing, that would be great.